So everybody keeps asking why the Las Vegas Raiders are continuing to start Geno Smith and not Aiden O'Connell. Well, the answer is pretty simple. Listen, John Spytek also is in danger of losing his career with the Raiders if he is not careful. And so the Raiders cannot have a Aiden O'Connell come in and win the next 3 games. Now, listen, even if Aiden O'Connell was in there, I don't think the Raiders would match up against the Houston Texans anyway, but beating the Giants is very doable, and beating the Chiefs, who are pretty much washed up for this entire season, especially now with Patrick Mahomes being hurt. The Raiders have to stick with what is not working in order to maintain possession of that number 1 overall draft pick. And I'll explain why the Raiders need to keep that number 1 overall draft pick and not be knocked down to, number 2 or 3. Now, keeping Geno Smith in is basically doing 2 things. Number 1, you're not clearly just tanking to get better draft picks. That's never good for a team. You're sticking with your starter, a starter who's making starter level money, and the guy that has a 3-year contract. And he is the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. So basically, you're guaranteeing yourself that you're going to look like you're competing, but you're not actually competing, because what you're competing for in reality is that number 1 overall draft pick, without telling the fans that you're just completely tanking. But we all can see right through this, because if you were really trying to compete, you would have benched Geno Smith a couple of weeks ago at the very latest, and you would have put Aiden O'Connell in there, or at least give Kenny Pickett a shot for the rest of the season just to see what you got. But what you don't want to end up with is, winning 4 or 5 or 6 games, and then all of a sudden you're picking at like 13 or 14 and you're out of the race, because this year is a very poor market for quarterbacks. There are basically 3 quarterbacks that are in contention to go in the first round right now, and really only 2 out of those 3 that I want the Raiders to get. Number 1, obviously, is Fernando Mendoza. Let me go over a few things as to why the Raiders need to pick him at number 1 if the Raiders have the first overall draft pick, not Dante Moore or Ty Simpson, even though both of those are really good quarterbacks. Number 1 is because Fernando Mendoza is 6'5", 225 pounds, and while he's not labeled as a dual threat quarterback, he absolutely should be. This dude does not run like he is 6'5" and 225 pounds. He runs like he's a Jaden Daniels, like 187 pounds or something. But the good thing about him is, because he's so thick, he can take a beating out there in an NFL field with NFL strength and conditioning of linebackers that are going to be trying to take him down, as well as defensive ends and defensive tackles. So hopefully he's going to be a much more durable quarterback than somebody like a Jaden Daniels, who is an elite athlete, but still a little bit underweight. He doesn't have Jaden Daniels' speed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this dude's a blazer. What he is athletic. And that puts defenses into a lull, especially if you get the run game going really good with Ashton Genty, and then you're allowed to get some play actions and hit those deep passes, something that he is really good at. That's going to set up the defense to get into a lull, forget about the fact that this dude can break off a 15 or 20 yard run, and especially if you're within 20 yards of a touchdown, this dude is really elite and dangerous at that point, because all he needs is one little slip of a defensive tackle and he's gone for a touchdown. Once safeties and cornerbacks are trying to bring this dude down, it's just not going to happen. He kind of reminds me of a Cam Newton in that regard, or a modern day Josh Allen. One other thing that is really good about him, and I guess it's 3 other things that is really good about Fernando Mendoza, is, in my opinion, he has the best NFL-ready arm in football right now. He can hit the short, the medium, and the long distance home run balls all day long. He throws with absolute ease of effort. It's just simply his arm goes back, the ball comes out, and it's like he's not even trying. That is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why Fernando Mendoza is better than the other 2 prospects I'm going to talk about here now. So let's jump into Dante Moore, who currently right now I am watching destroy James Madison University Absolutely. I mean, it's like 34-3. It's not even a competition. And Dante Moore has been absolutely on point and on fire. But he's going against James Madison, who's like the 12th ranked team in college football right now. Yes, they did really well, but this is not even a close competition. I'll wait and hold my reserve to see how he does in the next round of the playoff to see whether or not I'm going to give him such high praise. But he's doing what he's expected to do, which is absolutely dominate a subpar team in a playoff game, and he's doing it. One of the things that's really great about Dante Moore, and why I would not be mad if the Raiders don't get Fernando Mendoza, but they did get Dante Moore, is the fact that this is a true dual threat quarterback who can hit every pass out there. But Dante Moore does struggle a little bit more than Fernando Mendoza does on the deep ball. He's also not as big as, obviously, Fernando Mendoza, which is why I got to rank him a little bit lower, just because of the fact that Fernando Mendoza can see over the line with absolute ease. Now listen, Dante Moore is not a shorty by any means. As I'm talking about Dante Moore, he just threw an interception, but hey, it's 34-3. Who cares at this point? The fact of the matter is that one of the problems with him is the deep ball. It kind of just loses its strength. It doesn't zip. It doesn't maintain that momentum that Fernando Mendoza has when he's throwing the deep ball. And so that would be my only issue with him. Both him and Fernando Mendoza are really good at pre-snap reads of the defense. And I would say that Fernando Mendoza is just a little bit better post-snap. So again, I'm ranking Fernando just above Dante, but it's a really close competition between the two. Now let's talk about the consolation prize, which would be Ty Simpson out of Alabama. This guy finally got his ability to be a starter, and he took it in stride. Absolutely having a phenomenal season. One thing about Ty Simpson that does concern me is the fact that he doesn't have a long track record of being a starter for a top-tier team like Alabama. So is this just a one-off fluke, or is he really just that good? The question still remains though, but listen, I think Ty Simpson's probably going to go in the first round, but it's not going to be in the top 10. I think you're only going to see two quarterbacks go in the top 10. That's going to be Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore for sure. And I would see probably Ty going between picks 15 and 32 in the first round. Outside of that, everybody's talking about the Manning boy, and again, spotty on getting his starts. It's really going to be whether or not he's going to stay one more year, become the full-time starter, and then go into the 2027 NFL draft. He hasn't even, decided what he's going to do. So before we all start talking about, we got to get Manning, listen, we got to get a quarterback now. And Fernando Mendoza, in my opinion, is better than Manning at this point. And I don't know that Manning will get any better than he already is. I'm sure he probably will, but it's not a guarantee. So why would you waste the opportunity to get your franchise quarterback, 6'5", 225, athletic as can be, can outrun defensive ends and linebackers and knock over safeties and corners with ease, makes every throw out there on the field. And we have a history of having Latinos win championships for us with the Raiders, so why not go out and get another one?